Hello and welcome to another one of our Photoshop tutorials. Today we're going to be going over how to create this 3D panoramic effect. If you're new to the channel, please be sure to click on the subscribe button. Also, if you enjoy the video, please be sure to like and share. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you have any idea for future tutorials, please let us know in the comment sections below. I would also like to see what you've come up with using this technique. Let's get started. We're going to be working with a few images to create this effect. The first image we'll be working with is this picture of New York City. The next image will be this grass layer, and we're also going to be working with this picture of a lady here. So to get started, I'm going to hide my grass layer and my lady layer, and I'm going to select my city layer. It'd be much easier to follow along if you label your layers as such. So the first image I have labeled as city, the next layer as grass, and the layer above that as lady. There will be a link in the description for download. The first thing we'll do is we're going to have to adjust the dimensions of our image. So I'll go into image, image size, and if you hover over this little link icon, this will help you maintain the aspect ratio, but we do not want that for this tutorial. So I'm going to click this little icon, and I'm going to take our smallest number and copy it up top. So I have a height of 3840, and I'm going to type 3840 in the width as well. Now this is going to distort our image, but to create this effect, we need to work within a square type of shape. We cannot work within a rectangle. So I'll click OK now that I have my dimensions set. And you see we have quite a bit of distortion here. That's okay. The next thing I'll do is go into Edit, Transform, and Flip Vertical. This is because we want our city to be on the outside of the polarizing effect. If we do not flip it upside down, then our city will be on the inside of the effect. So now that you've flipped your image upside down, we'll go into Filter, Distort, and Polar Coordinates. So we'll make sure that we have rectangular to polar selected, and then click OK. So now we'll have this effect, but we have this hard line here, and we also have a bit of stretching around the edges. So the first thing I'd like to do is go using my crop tool, select my crop tool, and bring this in while holding Shift and Alt. So we're going to bring it in to just about here. So I'll press enter to confirm, and the next thing I'll do is I'll add a ruler by clicking up top on the ruler and dragging down to the center. Next, I'll take my rectangular marquee tool and I'll create a selection from this line here. So from the center along the bottom, I'll make a selection. Click and drag all the way across to make the selection from the middle point to the bottom here. The next thing I'll do is press Ctrl J. Now you've created a new layer of your selection. So I'll press Ctrl H to hide my ruler, and I'll select my new layer and name it City Copy. The next thing I'll do is go into Edit, Transform, and Flip Vertical. Now I'll drag my layer up to the top and place it into position. While holding the Shift key, click and drag to the center there until you get an effect something similar to this here. I'll select both layers, press Control E to merge, and now we have them on one layer. I'll rename this layer City Layer, and now we have our background prepared. Next, I'll press Control T to enter into my transform tool. While hovering over the top right corner and holding the Shift key, I'll click and drag. I'll press Enter to confirm. And now we have our background prepared. The next thing I'll do is highlight my grass layer while selecting my elliptical marquee tool and holding the Shift key. I'll click and drag to create a circle. I'll right click on my grass layer and rasterize my layer. The next thing I'll do is press Control, Shift, and I to invert my selection, and then press backspace to delete. We might have to delete some more because they may have been a remainder of the grass layer left on the top or around. So I'll scale my layer down by pressing Control T. And there we go. We see some of that, the remaining effects of the deletion. So I'll scale this down to right about there. Let me scale it down a bit more because we want to make sure it fits right in the circle there. I'll press Enter to confirm. To get rid of these remaining effects of the deletion, I'll select my rectangle marquee tool. While I'm on my grass layer, I'll just highlight the area and press backspace. Make a selection of the area and backspace. There we go. Control D to deselect. I'll zoom in, and we're just going to place this grass layer right in the center there. Control 0 to zoom back out. Now I'll bring up the layer of the lady that we have here. I'll press Control T to bring up my transform tool, and we're going to scale her down quite a bit here. You want to give the effect that she's looking up from the city. I'll press Apply, and we're going to move her into place. I think that looks good right about there. The next thing we'll do is make a copy of this layer. So I'll press Control J while it's selected. I'm going to move my main layer above the copy. We're going to, while holding Control, click on the thumbnail of the copy layer. And while you have your copy layer selected and your foreground color set to black, we're going to press Alt and backspace to fill in our copy layer. We're going to be creating a shadow effect right below the image here of the lady. So I'll zoom in so we get a clear enough selection. And I'm going to, while my lady layer copy is selected, I'm going to go into Edit, Transform, and Flip Vertical. Holding the space bar, I'll move up a bit. I'm going to press Control T to rotate. Let's move this into place here. Let's see what we get. That looks good right about there. I'll scale it down a bit. So this area of the shadow is going to match up with her knee, and the remainder will cover the rest of the lady layer. So I'll scale it down. I'll press Enter to confirm. The next thing I'll do is add a Gaussian blur to it. So I'll go into Blur, Filter, and Blur, and Gaussian Blur. I have my radius set to 13.9 pixels. So I'll click OK. And now we're going to create a duplicate layer. So Control J to duplicate. So our bottom layer is going to serve as the outside shadow, and our top layer will serve as much like a darker tone of the shadow. So the first thing I'll do is I'll control click on my grass layer to get the selection here available. The next thing I'll do is select both layers. We're going to do one at a time. I'm going to press Control Shift I and then press backspace to delete. I'll select the top layer and press backspace to delete. Control D to deselect. While I'm on my copy layer, I'm going to hide my copy layer first. So we'll hide the bottom layer and let's work with this top layer. Let's name this Shadow 1 and Shadow 2. Shadow 1, which is going to be the shadow that's closer to our lady subject. And then we'll name this one Shadow 2. I'll select Shadow 1, click on the mask at the bottom of the Layers panel, select my brush tool. When my foreground color is set to black, I'll scale my brush down, and we're just gonna create this shadow effect, mask away some of the hard tones there. I'll press X to toggle between my foreground and background so that way I can make some visible again, some of the shadow visible. We want to get a much more realistic effect here. And the next thing I'll do is highlight Shadow 2 layer, make that visible, and we're going to lower its opacity to about 25%. I'll click enter to confirm. The next thing we'll do is add a light source. So I'll create a new layer above all of my layers. With my foreground color set to black, I'll press Alt and backspace to fill in my layer. I'll go into Filter, Render, Lens Flare. We're going to select 35. As a matter of fact, we're gonna select 35mm prime. I'll select OK, and you should have an effect similar to this here. We're gonna set our blending mode to screen. I'll then move my layer into place. Next, I'll add a mask to my lens flare layer. With my brush tool selected and my foreground color set to black, I'll increase my brush size, and I want to make sure that my hardness is set to 0. And then we're just going to work around here and delete some of these unwanted areas of the lens flare. And now we just have a few more steps to complete this tutorial. We'll add some adjustment layers. So I'll go into my curves, and I'm just going to add a slight curve right here and bring this one up a bit. I'll press X to exit out of there. This is all personal preference, but I like to add some adjustment layers to make the image pop a bit. So I'll increase my shadows. I'll decrease my midtones, and let's go a little bit with the highlights, and then work the shadows again. You have now completed our 3D panoramic effect tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to click on the subscribe button. Also like and share if you can. We would greatly appreciate it. If you have any ideas for future tutorials that you may like us to upload, please leave us a comment below. We would also, again, like to see what you've come up with using this technique, so please send us some of your images, and we'll see you next time.